Most people spend their entire lives working for money. They wake up early, sit in traffic, answer emails, deal with stress, and trade hours of their life for a paycheck. And for most people, that's the only way money ever comes in. You work, you get paid, you spend it, and then you start over again next month. But something strange happens when you cross a certain line financially. At some point, money stops acting like paper and starts acting like an employee. It begins working while you sleep, while you eat, while you're watching Netflix, while you're on vacation, even while you're doing absolutely nothing. And the crazy part? Most people never realize this is the actual game. They spend years trying to earn more money, without understanding that the real goal is to build money that can earn money. Because once that shift happens, your entire relationship with work, time, stress, and life begins to change. And the difference between someone who stays financially stuck forever and someone who quietly builds wealth over time usually comes down to one simple moment: the moment their money starts making money. Here's how most people think about money. You make money, so you can spend money. That's it. And honestly, that mindset makes perfect sense because that's how we're taught from childhood. Study hard, get a good job, earn a salary, buy nice things. Nobody really teaches us how money itself works. Nobody sits us down and says, "Hey, one day your money can become more productive than you are." Instead, we grow up believing income only comes from effort. So naturally, people focus almost entirely on increasing active income, working overtime, taking extra shifts, freelancing at night, starting side hustles, burning themselves out trying to earn more. And there's nothing wrong with hard work. The problem is this: human energy has limits. You can only work so many hours. You can only take so much stress. You can only trade so much time before your body and mind push back. Money doesn't have that problem. Money never gets tired. Money doesn't need sleep. Money doesn't complain. Money can keep moving 24 hours a day. But most people never experience that because the moment they get paid, their money immediately disappears into consumption. A better phone, a slightly nicer car, more food delivery, more subscriptions, more upgrades, more "I deserve this." And again, none of these things are evil. But there's a psychological trap hidden inside modern life. The moment people earn more, their lifestyle quietly expands to consume it. This is why someone earning $3,000 a month and someone earning $10,000 a month can both feel broke. Because wealth is not just about income. It's about what your money does after you receive it. And this is where most people unknowingly stay trapped for decades. Every dollar they earn immediately leaves them. So even though they work harder every year, their money never learns how to work. Imagine two people. Both are 25 years old. Both earn the same salary. Both are smart. Both work hard. But they make one different decision. The first person spends nearly everything they earn. The second person saves and invests just a small portion consistently. Not huge amounts, nothing dramatic. Maybe $300 a month. At first, the difference between them is almost invisible. In fact, the spender often looks richer. Better clothes, better vacations, better lifestyle, more visible success. Meanwhile, the investor's life looks boring. No flashy upgrades, no constant spending, no dramatic flexing online. And this is where psychology becomes important. Human beings are naturally wired to value immediate rewards more than future rewards. Your brain loves instant pleasure. Buying something today feels emotionally real. Investing for 15 years feels abstract and distant. This is why saving money can feel painful in the short term. Your brain interprets delayed gratification almost like a loss. But here's what most people don't see. At first, investing money feels slow because the money you invested is still tiny. Imagine planting one seed in the ground. For weeks, nothing impressive happens. No giant tree, no visible transformation, just dirt. Most people quit during this stage, not because investing doesn't work, but because humans hate slow progress. We are emotionally addicted to visible results, but money grows differently than effort. When you work for money, growth is usually linear. You work 1 hour, you get paid for 1 hour. You work 10 hours, you get paid for 10 hours. Simple. But when money starts making money, growth becomes exponential. And exponential growth feels invisible at first. Let's say you invest $300 every month. At first, the growth feels tiny. Maybe a few dollars, then a few more. Nothing life-changing. But then something important starts happening. The money you earned from your investments begins earning money too. And then that new money begins earning more money. This is the moment the machine starts building itself. It's like rolling a snowball down a hill. At first, it barely moves. You almost feel stupid pushing it. But slowly, it gets larger, heavier, faster. And eventually, the snowball starts growing faster than your own pushing effort. This is what compounding really is. Not magic, not luck, just growth building on previous growth. And the reason wealthy people obsess over this idea is because eventually, the math becomes unfair. In the beginning, you are the main source of growth. Your job matters most. Your savings matter most. Your discipline matters most. But later, your investments begin contributing more growth than your actual work. Think about how strange that is. Imagine waking up and seeing your investments grow by more money in a day than you made working 8 hours. At first, that sounds impossible. But over long periods of time, this becomes normal for people who consistently invest. And this changes people psychologically in ways most don't expect. Because when your money starts making money, time starts feeling different. Most people think freedom comes from earning more. But real financial freedom usually comes from needing less active effort to survive. That's a completely different idea. Imagine two people making the exact same income. One loses their job and immediately panics because every bill depends on next month's paycheck. The other loses their job, but still has investments quietly producing income and growth in the background. Same income, completely different stress levels. Why? Because one person built a system, the other built dependence. And this is where people misunderstand wealth. Wealth is not always visible. Sometimes the richest person in the room is the person whose life is not controlled by financial fear. Because money affects more than just purchases. It affects psychology. When people live paycheck to paycheck, their decisions become shorter term. They tolerate toxic jobs, stay in stressful situations, delay dreams, avoid risks, live in survival mode. Scarcity changes how humans think. Research in psychology shows that financial stress consumes mental bandwidth. When people constantly worry about money, their brain becomes focused on immediate survival. That's why poor financial habits are often emotional, not mathematical. People don't overspend because they're stupid. They overspend because spending temporarily relieves stress, boredom, insecurity, loneliness, or anxiety. Modern consumer culture understands this perfectly. That's why advertisements rarely sell products. They sell emotional identities, confidence, status, success, attractiveness, belonging. People buy things hoping to feel different emotionally. But investing works in the opposite direction. Investing often requires feeling uncomfortable today to become stronger tomorrow. And psychologically, that's difficult. Because nobody claps for quiet financial discipline. Nobody sees the investment account growing slowly in the background. There's no social media excitement around consistency. But over time, something powerful happens. Your investments slowly begin buying back your freedom. Maybe at first they cover tiny things: a phone bill, a grocery bill, a utility payment, small wins. But eventually, investment income starts covering larger portions of life. And this creates a fascinating emotional shift. You stop feeling desperate. You stop feeling trapped. You stop making every decision from fear. Because now, your survival depends less on constant labor. This is why people who understand money deeply often value ownership more than income. Because income requires continuous effort. Ownership creates leverage. A worker trades time for money. An owner builds systems that continue producing value. And investing is one of the simplest forms of ownership available to ordinary people. You don't need millions to begin. You just need consistency and time. That's the part people struggle to accept. Time. Humans naturally underestimate long periods. We overestimate what can happen in 1 year and massively underestimate what can happen in 20. That's why young people often ignore investing. Retirement feels too far away. Future wealth feels imaginary. But the strange thing about time is this: whether you use it or not, it passes anyway. The years will move regardless. And eventually, one of two things happens. Either you look back grateful that your money was quietly growing for years, or you look back wishing you had started earlier. Because compounding doesn't just reward money, it rewards time. And this is why starting small is infinitely better than waiting for the perfect moment. Many people delay investing because they think, "I'll start once I make more money." But higher income alone rarely solves poor financial behavior. If someone cannot manage small amounts wisely, larger amounts often disappear the same way. Lifestyle inflation expands to consume the increase. That's why some lottery winners go broke. That's why professional athletes sometimes lose fortunes. That's why people with high salaries still feel financially trapped. Wealth building is less about income size and more about behavior consistency. Small, repeated actions become massive outcomes over time. That applies negatively too. Tiny, unnecessary spending repeated daily can quietly destroy long-term wealth. People laugh at small expenses because, individually, they seem harmless. But investing works because small amounts repeated consistently become powerful. The direction matters more than the size at first. And once your money begins generating returns, a psychological transformation starts happening. You begin seeing money differently. Instead of asking, "What can I buy with this?" you start asking, "How can this money produce more money?" That single mindset shift changes financial lives, because now every dollar becomes a worker. And some workers are more valuable alive than spent. Here's the deeper truth most people eventually discover about wealth. The goal was never really money. It was control over your time. Think about it. Why do people want financial success? Usually because they imagine freedom attached to it. Freedom to rest. Freedom to travel. Freedom to say no. Freedom to choose work they actually enjoy. Freedom to spend time with family. Freedom to stop living in constant anxiety. Money itself is just a tool. But when your money starts making money, the tool starts creating options. And options reduce fear. This is why financially secure people often appear calmer, not because they have zero problems, but because time pressure affects them differently. They are not forced to make every decision under survival stress. And ironically, this often leads to better decisions overall, because desperation creates short-term thinking. People in financial panic often make emotional choices, quick purchases, bad debt, risky decisions. toxic work environments. But when your financial foundation becomes stronger, your thinking becomes longer term. You become more patient. And patience is one of the biggest hidden advantages in wealth building. The stock market, investing, business ownership, all disproportionately reward patience, not constant excitement, not emotional reactions, not chasing every trend. Patience. But patience is psychologically difficult because modern life trains us for speed. Fast food, fast shipping, instant entertainment, instant dopamine. We've become uncomfortable with slow progress, and wealth creation is painfully slow in the beginning. That's why most people quit before compounding becomes visible. Imagine watching bamboo grow. For years, it appears like almost nothing is happening above the ground, but underneath, roots are spreading deeply. Then suddenly, growth accelerates dramatically. Wealth building often feels exactly like that. Invisible, then obvious. And by the time compounding becomes impressive, the hardest part is usually already over. Because the biggest barrier was never knowledge. Most people already know saving and investing are important. The real challenge is emotional consistency. Continuing even when results feel small. Continuing even when others appear ahead. Continuing even when progress feels invisible. That's the psychological game most people lose. They underestimate the power of boring consistency. But boring consistency is exactly what allows money to eventually become independent from your labor. And once that happens, life changes in subtle but powerful ways. You stop obsessing over every paycheck. You stop feeling trapped by every financial setback. You stop seeing work as pure survival. Because now you have something most people never build: momentum. So what should you actually take away from all of this? First, understand that wealth is usually built quietly. Social media makes wealth look dramatic. Luxury cars, huge houses, big announcements. But real wealth building often looks repetitive and unexciting. Saving consistently, investing regularly, avoiding unnecessary lifestyle inflation, giving investments time to grow. Second, stop viewing investing as something only rich people do. Investing is often how ordinary people slowly become financially secure. You don't need to start big. You need to start. Even small amounts matter because the habit itself changes your psychology. Third, understand that money has two possible jobs. Job number 1, buy temporary pleasure. Job number 2, buy future freedom. And the most financially successful people learn how to balance both. They enjoy life, but they also keep some money alive and working. Because every dollar spent disappears once, but every dollar invested has the potential to keep working repeatedly for years. Fourth, focus less on looking wealthy and more on becoming financially resilient. Those are very different things. Looking wealthy is about appearance. Financial resilience is about stability, flexibility, and reduced stress. And finally, be patient with the process. The early stage feels slow for everyone. That's normal. The first few years often feel emotionally unrewarding because visible progress is small. But compounding is strange. At first it whispers. Then eventually it roars. And most people never hear the roar because they quit during the whisper stage. At the end of the day, the biggest financial shift in life is not when you buy something expensive. It's when you realize money can become productive without your constant effort. Because until that moment, you are carrying the entire financial load alone. Every bill depends on your energy. Every goal depends on your time. Every setback hits directly. But once your money begins making money, even slowly, life starts changing beneath the surface. Your stress changes. Your decisions change. Your relationship with work changes. Your sense of freedom changes. And eventually, you realize something powerful. The wealthiest people are not necessarily the people who work the hardest forever. Often, they are the people who learned how to make their money continue working long after they stopped. That's the real power of investing. Not becoming rich overnight, but slowly building a life where your future is no longer dependent on constant survival. And the earlier you understand that, the more time money has to start working for you instead of against you,